Hey.
Third episode of Benched. Here we are in McCall Park. Beautiful McCall Park. A little chilly today on this January, what's the date? 16th, 2021. Hard to believe we made it through 2022. I'm here with Joy, and I'm Jennifer, the bench counselor, and we're here today to talk about a lot of things, but particularly giving grace and what that looks like in and with everything we're kind of experiencing these days.
Yes.
So that's where we are. Now I want to talk about our shirts a little bit. A friend of mine does these. I think she's going to post her link on my Facebook page. It's G Convo or Gospel Conversations to get you talking about some of the things that Joy and I have been talking about, some of the things she actually talks about on her Facebook page. So I think she's going to post that if you're interested in one of these t-shirts, or the one I wear that says hope is a thing, or I have one that says mercy is a thing. I think there's one that says grace is a thing. So anyway, if you're interested in a shirt, she's going to post that, share it, and put it on my Facebook page, so you can get that done. So Joy, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm so happy you started with the t-shirts, because when I received my t-shirt last week, I was like, oh, this is really cool, free indeed, because you know that's my thing.
That's your thing, yeah.
That's my thing, freedom. And I read the Gospel Conversation tip number 4 that was attached to my shirt, and it says, be prepared, pray for the Lord to give you wisdom and words when the opportunity presents itself.
Amen.
Amen. And that is a place that I exist often.
Absolutely.
That is my place of existence.
Yes, and mine too. And mine too.
Yeah.
And in fact, I want to start that. And this is not at all where we were going to start today, but Joy and I received some news this morning. A colleague of ours, I don't even know where to start, but even though he did have some freedom in Christ, there was some things that he had not completely surrendered in his life. And because of that, he wound up in a difficult situation, and his life kind of ended abruptly, too soon for his wife and new baby, on December 17th. And we just got word of that. And so, in talking about that and talking about freedom, you think about so many people who have kind of stood in the gap, and so many people who have done things for the sake of freedom, and we're seeing so many things right now.
Amen.
People trying to find their own freedom and trying to find out what that means. And I always go back to, and I know our boss, he and I talk often about one of the heroes of the civil rights movement, and that's Rosa Parks. And she is a hero of mine, simply because she had enough guts to say no more. But in that, though, Joy, one of the things I love about Rosa is Rosa didn't fight. She knew and was well prepared to receive the consequence that was coming to her if she took her stand.
That's right.
And she knew that, and she was going to make the stand and take the consequence. And our principal, Mr. Bobo, Reverend Bobo, Cornelius Bobo of Progress Village Baptist Church. If you need a church to go to, it's down in the Riverview, Progress Village area. So one of the things he and I always talk about is, you got to be willing to take it. If you're going to make your stand, you got to be willing to take it. So, that's kind of walking in freedom, and as I see it, knowing that you are prepared to take what's going to come if you make your stand.
Right. I have a Facebook friend of mine, young guy, just got caught up in some stuff, and he got caught up in some stuff. One evening on my podcast, he asked me, how do you know if you're free? And I said, give me a moment to respond to that, because I think it looks different for people, whatever. So it looks different. And so I finally pulled the words to say, you know that you're free when you move without fear of anybody else, without disappointing somebody, you know that you're free when you're moving because God is pulling you. That's where you're moving. So whenever we put up boundaries associated with people, and if they'll be disappointed, or if they'll be, that's when you know you're not free. And we operate in that all the time, for disappointment, for friends, spouses, parents, brothers, sisters. It's always, well, if I do this, then this. and that's not the intention, I think.
Right. And you know, you talk about that too. In Christian circles, they kind of talk about delayed obedience as disobedience. And that's kind of the same thinking. If you have to stop and think about it and think about, you know, what might happen and you're not prepared, then that's not really freedom. So you have to be ready.
You have to be ready. This is it.
Called upon.
Conversation tip number 4.
Absolutely.
You have to.
You have to be ready.
And we've talked about Rosa at work on several occasions, because even as strong and brilliant woman as you are, when it's time to step outside of that box or to move from the back of the bus, it's it's scary.
It is scary.
It's scary because it's like, well, whose seat am I going to sit in? And who's going to, you know, you start looking and then you're like, go, just do it. Like, and then you do it and you're like,
wow,
nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like,
or even if it does happen,
you're like,
you know, even if it does happen and you know that it is something you were supposed to have done or that God had called you to do, then He's going to put those pieces in place, right, to protect you and to cover you.
oh yes.
You know, and just recently I did have something happen, and you know, it was interesting because I'm on the phone trying at 9:30 at night trying to get all the pieces together, and then suddenly they just fell.
Absolutely.
They just fell. You know, and so I had to take another step, and in doing that, I gained some empowerment in that situation. But it was because God had honored the steps that I needed to take, and so that was huge. So in relationship to grace, so let's talk about that just a little bit.
Just about to say that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was like, and that's where the grace comes in.
Absolutely.
That's where the grace comes in. When you know you're moving and your pieces are falling, grace. You know it, and we've been saying that. We've been saying you have to give grace. You have to allow people in this turmoil time to breathe through. You got to give it. If you don't, we're all the same.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And anxiety. So let's talk a little bit about what grace is. So mercy, right? People talk about mercy a lot. Mercy is different than grace, and mercy is a place where judgment has already happened, and then a pardon is given. That's mercy. So if you're talking about mercy, you have already judged that person. And mercy's great. I mean, mercy is wonderful. But grace is even bigger. And grace is bigger because, again, I'm going to just throw something out there from our principal, Cornelius Bobo, Reverend Cornelius Bobo, who kind of gave me a definition of grace, which is just, and it brings tears to my eyes every time I think about this. And I'm 53, and I've never thought of it this way. So he really enlightened me. And I often call him my pastor. And so he is absolutely my pastor Monday through Friday, and even sometimes on the weekend. So this is what he said. He and I were kind of in conflict over some things. And basically he said, you know, Shiver, you looked around the situation, and you saw me, and you were loyal to me. And he said, that's grace. And every time I think of it, it kind of brings tears to my eyes. And he and I discussed it, and we take it one step forward. It's not just looking around a situation and seeing someone else, although that is grace. It is looking around a situation or a person or a hot topic for you, something that grates on you, and seeing Jesus on the other side. Now that is the definition of grace.
And I think we get to that when we understand Jesus in us.
Oh,
right? So when you know that, when you can see you and what you've been through and your steps you've taken and your flub ups and the mercy and when you can see Jesus in you, you can then see Jesus in others.
absolutely.
That's when it's easier to look through those situations, because you know the Jesus in you. There's no intention of hurt. There's no intention of pain, of judgment, of abuse. There's no intention in that. So when you know it's here and you've accepted it, you see other people, the goodness in them, and then you allow them to respond how they will respond, not how you want them to respond.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's on them.
Right.
You're doing your part by recognizing the reflection of Jesus, but they have to see it in themselves before they can reflect.
Absolutely. And it,
Yeah.
you know, it's a struggle because we all have
Oh, yeah.
hot button topics,
Oh,
right?
baby.
I have my
Oh,
list.
baby.
I have my list, right? And you have your list, and
Ooh.
you know, I know, just you and I both could agree that people who don't respect boundaries, that's a hot button. That gets on our last nerve immediately, right? And we have a
Absolutely.
hard time controlling our anger in
Yeah.
those situations. But there are some bigger ones, and we talk about them a lot sometimes in the Christian community, some hot button topics, For me, one of mine is the way men treat women.
Oh.
So predatory behavior, assault,
Mm-hmm.
sexual harassment,
Condescending. Misogynistic.
Yeah.
Let's go
Okay.
on.
Let's keep coming with the
Let's
words.
go.
So that's a hot button for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
So I have a really hard time with that sometimes, but I can tell you that I used to walk in Ybor on Saturday mornings, and I would kind of pray for some of the homeless people. I befriended a homeless man down there, and the reason he was homeless was because years ago he had made a mistake, and he was labeled a predator. And he wound up on the street because it's hard to get a job, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he wound up on the street, good, bad, and different. This is who he was. And God really worked on that whole grace part with Glenn and me. Looking around him and being able to see Jesus.
That's right.
And having conversations with Glenn about who Jesus was. So those hot topic issues and grace can become really, really difficult and really hard to maneuver around, to get around, and you can really blow it easily.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you can blow your witness, you can blow that grace piece, and sometimes you don't get a second chance at it.
No, and that's what we have to. I think for me, that's the place that I kind of exist in. It's like I want to be so pleasing in God's eyes. I mean, I have to be human because that's what He chose for me, but I want to be pleasing. And how am I pleasing and still balance that human part of me? And even last week we had a boundary issue at school, and I blew my top about it. Like, I was so mad, but then when I took some time and just gave myself, recognized that grace,
Right.
and started looking at how it could have been different, I realized that I could have been a key piece of the situation. And because I chose to step out of the situation for whatever reason, there was this disaster that happened. So then I had to say, okay, look, I can't look at you for the reason this is a disaster. I now see me and that I was supposed to be in a place. So it's owning that the power of me is important, my place is important, and accepting that if God has placed me here, then my duties here are significant to the success of it. If I give Him credit for placing me in this place, for picking me up and putting me in this spot, then the duties assigned to me while I'm here by the leadership or whatever, they're important to my success and the success of things that I touch. And so even just owning that, and I went to the administrator and was like, oops, I was mad, but my bad. I apologize. If there's a sanction, if there's something you need to do, I'm here for it.
Right.
But you gotta own it. And when you can own it and you see Jesus in yourself,
Right.
it allows you that to kind of be like, okay, so I can't judge this person. I'm not mad at this person. If this person isn't the recipient of this, I've got to figure out where it goes, because this is a person finding their way.
Absolutely, and that's, yeah. And sometimes it's hard to recognize, when you, and maybe this is a pride thing. So when you think you've arrived, right, and you think you've got it, and you think, okay, well, I am free, right, so I can step on whoever I want to, and then you have to take that step back and say, hey, wait a minute, because as we talked about last week, words matter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Words matter, and as we saw, and I don't want to dwell there, but as we saw in Washington, right, words matter.
Oh, that is on my heart.
Words matter, and what you say can cause someone else to react in a way that you didn't want them to. And once the words come out of your mouth, you don't get to choose how other people respond to them, and that's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
In a past relationship, I used to say, when I left the relationship, I used to say, I would rather you walk up to me and punch me in the face than to berate me. I'd rather you just knock me out cold. I can recover from that faster than processing over and over and over your words and the intention and trying to fix them because I think you're not trying to hurt me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I'm battling with myself. Like, he couldn't have possibly have meant that. He loves me. We have this duplicitous place we exist when we think there's love there. And that's I'm so particular about what I say and how I say. And I even will ask someone to stop talking to me before I say, and that took some practice.
Absolutely.
So I'm in my box. I don't want to process what you have to say because I know you're about to try to hurt me and you don't get to hurt me. And that's it. Your words are crazy important. And that mess in DC right now, it's so many people, their homes, their lives are turned upside down.
Absolutely. Because of words.
Because of words.
Because of words. Or, and here's another piece to that, because they weren't heard.
Yeah.
They feel like they weren't heard.
They weren't heard. And we've
that's an
seen
issue.
that.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
Absolutely.
When you're not heard, you got to act out some kind of way. You have, whether good, bad, or indifference, it's your response to the situation. And this, what's funny? I've been looking on Facebook and reading comments and about people being up there, and I still don't want anybody hurt. You know what? You don't want anybody hurt.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, good for them. They shouldn't have been. I'm like, it's still people. It's people.
Well, I went on our friends page. I looked up some of what had happened to him because it was very publicized a few counties away from us. And I was just, because I knew our friend and I knew who he was, and again, hadn't surrendered maybe some of the pieces that he needed to, but he had surrendered. I know his heart to Christ. There was a life change, and we know it. We saw him go through the waters of baptism.
Yeah.
There was a life change, but he still held on to some pieces of himself. Anyway, so I'm reading the comments, and it was just absolutely a lot political in nature. Here's an affluent, what happens now, right? There was one that said, and I'm just going to kind of quote it, I'm sure he went to hell. And I'm like, you didn't know him.
Yeah.
You didn't know him. You didn't know him.
And there's the person that think they've arrived. I think I've arrived. I'm going to say what I believe. You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. And that's the beautiful thing about just existing and living in Christ is that he's so forgiving. It's so many things. Like, we have this is my sliver and this is his sliver. Like, we don't know. So to say something like that, how do you respond to that when it's your turn to be judged? Hey, remember you said you're sure you went to hell? Why'd you say that? And why do you think you shouldn't go to hell? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, how do you, because...
Yeah. I wanted to. I was like, okay, look, the person is foolish, right?
Yeah.
So let me exercise some grace here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This isn't my battle.
That's
this
right.
isn't my stand. So I think about that in relation to, so let's talk about that in relation to maybe Rosa Parks, right? So she takes her stand, and a beautiful stand it was.
Absolutely. Non-violent.
Non-violent.
I'm just done. I'm
done, and I'm not sitting in the back anymore.
I'm not moving.
And not to be in someone's face. I'm going to claim my space. But just, we're done with this. We're done with this. And so she gets arrested, right? And we have that beautiful historical picture there of Dr. King standing with her. He starts the Montgomery bus boycott. And this kind of launches him, too, puts him in the forefront because of a decision she makes as a woman.
Yeah.
And we talk to, it's a word that's thrown out there a lot, systemic racism. Well, I prefer systemic inequality.
Okay.
Because it talks about, that includes poverty. It includes women.
Oh, yes.
And if you've been a woman and you know what it's like to be, what words do I want to use? Sexually harassed.
Sexualized. Yeah.
Any of that, then you know how that feels.
Oh, and early. It doesn't take it's not a long time.
Take long,
It doesn't, we're talking 11, 12, 13. Like, if somebody somewhere giving you the googly eyes. Like, it starts early that you realize this is creepy. So it's not, it doesn't happen at like 18 all of a sudden, It's just kind of one of those things that know exist. We know what the looks feel like, and we hope that somebody is strong enough to protect us until we can protect ourselves. That's it right there. Like we hope that, and that's essentially Miss Parks, Rosa Parks just was like, you know what, I'm done. And then Dr. King is like, okay, well, I got to support here. She's taking a stand. What we're fighting, we have to support this. Let me step into this. Let me help here. And we need that, because it validates that I've stepped out in a place that I'm not necessarily sure of, and I'll take the worst of the worst, because that's what we expect. We don't expect to take the step and move a nation with us.
Right.
We expect to take the step and it benefits me.
Right.
I'm not taking this anymore. And then you step, and then people are like, well, hell, I'm not taking it anymore either.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not taking it anymore either. Let's go, and you realize, that's when you realize the power. That's when you realize there's power in this. And then, okay, so we're gonna walk. We're gonna walk. We're gonna do this for, well, it was a couple of years. I can't forget how many days it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a history teacher. I should know that, right?
But I mean, so it wasn't like 10 minutes.
Right.
But that's right now. We want microwave things to happen quickly, and this pandemic has allowed us to sit in the oven. We're not in not the microwave anymore.
Right.
We're gonna warm it up in the oven. It's gonna take some time.
Take it.
Yes, it's gonna take some time, and that's what we're seeing. So many people screaming out for. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And it's not just black people. It's not just men, black men, or white women, or black women, or children, or other cultures. It's everybody has something that they are struggling with. And how do we address a nation of goodness?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that the goodness is highlighted and pulled out and moved forward, and not the yuckiness? And that's our shift.
Yeah.
That's the shift.
And I think again, I think it's sharing a bench.
Mm-hmm.
It's having a conversation. It's doing those things, the G Convo card, right? Being ready when someone says what, So I have a former student in the Capitol building, and she works, I'm not going to tell you who she works for, but she's a top aide for one of the top players in Washington. And, I'm texting her on the Wednesday when everything went down, and all of a sudden the text stopped.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, okay, so, I'm kind of watching on TV, I'm watching my phone, I'm kind of, a friend of hers and I are corresponding at the same time too, and I'm just trying to figure all those pieces out for someone who sat in my classroom, who I still see. I mean, she has this powerful job.
You still see as a little girl.
I see her as a child in my classroom, and just trying to fit those pieces together.
Like, is she ready?
Yeah.
Is she ready?
What is she doing?
Yeah.
Are they helping? All those pieces. And so she came back a few days later and said, we did barricade ourselves. Mm-hmm. It took them a while to get to us but one of the things she said was that, there were people banging on the door, trying to get into the offices. And she said, we were safe. There's kind of a maze of offices where she works. And so she said, we were kind of safe. We weren't really worried. But the tension of them just banging, wanting to get to us.
And the intention of their actions. So it's like, you want to get to me and argue with me, or you want to get to me and string me up and kill me?
Hurt me.
Yeah, you want, like, the intention, and that's the blatant, for me, that's like the blatant just disregard of being American. Like, of what I, as a black woman taught in the American U.S. education system, of what it means to be American. And then to have the writers of this, the descendants of the writers of this, to come out and do something. I'm like, but wait, I thought this is the way it was supposed to be. And I drank the lemonade, and I'm here, and I'm doing, and you're gonna come hurt me because I'm doing what you wrote as a plan?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I was so disgusted, and I just was trying, I don't have to do this anymore, but to go into this anger space of doing something, because I know that the Jesus in me is, see it.
Right.
Like, you see it.
Right.
Don't act like you're super surprised by it,
Right.
because you've seen the trajectory of this past year.
Right.
You've heard the conversation of our president. You've heard the conversation of the followers. So are you really surprised, or are you feigning surprise to, like the truth about it? What does it
Right.
mean, right? So
If we know the truth.
if we know the
If
truth,
we know the truth.
If
And
we
that,
know.
it comes into question when there's a lack of trust, right?
Oh.
So we talk about this all the time. Negative ambiguity in
Ooh.
communication, right? So if the other person in a relationship is not communicating or not telling you or not telling the truth,
Mhm.
then this gap in between, the space in between is left for you to fill.
Uh-huh.
And naturally, as humans created in sin, right,
Mhm.
we are left to fill that negative void with
Our hope.
our hope or our negative thoughts,
Yeah.
a reflection of us. Well, shoot, how
Oh,
so
yeah.
so all those pieces. So thinking back again, let's bring this back
Yeah.
to Rosa Parks and Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi, who
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of. Now, he was not a Christian. I'm not sure I'm going to meet him in the afterlife, but just
Maybe.
a huge fan of his policies there in India and how he moved a nation,
Yeah.
right? And Dr. King borrowed from him, and then just the movement and the peace. And when I was teaching history, I always used to say, and some scholars out there will probably disagree with me if they find this on Facebook, but I always used to say, in the North, it took a Malcolm X because they didn't realize they had a racial problem. Right? So it took
That's
a
a
Malcolm
great
X.
perspective.
Yeah, it took a Malcolm
Yeah.
X to wake them up.
Yeah. That's a great
It
perspective.
took some riots and
Yeah.
it took some violence and it took that
show that
peace
there's a problem.
To show there's a problem
oppression.
because they didn't think there was,
Yeah.
right?
We're just doing us.
Right.
Yeah.
And here in the South, then you had that whole different, that nonviolent,
Mhm.
right? And the South's kind of, these pictures of
Sweet
the dogs
and syrupy,
the yes,
slow and
yes,
mellow.
So it was just a difference in the way people responded and
Yeah.
saw things in the need
Yeah.
of how it needed
Yeah.
to be approached. Even, not that I'm advocating violence, but at the same time, there had to be kind of a shakeup.
Yeah, it had
Right?
to.
And we're seeing that now on a lot of sides, right? Both sides of the aisle, right? There are things that are broken that need to be fixed. So in exercising grace, we talk about that. So in exercising grace, that's me to you.
Mhm.
That's me to employees that break boundary issues.
Mhm.
That's me to both political parties.
Yes.
That's me to
the lady at the grocery store who cut you off, or on the street. Like, that's saying, I see you. I see you. But in saying that, I see you, and
to the squirrel that is throwing sticks at us right
Yes.
now. Yes.
But saying that I see you isn't, that doesn't give somebody permission to hurt you.
Right.
Right? So you allow this because you recognize there's a walk and there's a growth. But when someone's intention is to hurt you, then you have a right to protect yourself. Not necessarily physically, but a boundary. Just, hey, you don't get to hurt me today. I don't get to process that. Because who are you? What do you know about me? What do you know about my past that you can come along and hurt me in this moment? You don't have that power. God wouldn't give that to you.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times in my counseling office, I deal with people who have suffered a lot of rejection. And it's caused them to be in a different place. And sometimes the freeing words is just, you don't have to take someone else's rejection.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to receive that. If somebody is rejecting you, you don't have to receive that. You have the power to walk away from that rejection.
Exactly.
You just really do.
Yeah. And even the rejection itself is if it's a situation that you're not supposed to be in. Okay. Let me change direction. I'm supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna fight against it and hold it against you because you told me no. You may have saved me from something. You may have saved me from turmoil. And like, why would you want to be in a place that you're not getting goodness? That you're not getting any goodness, and you're not happy, and you're not looking forward to going there. And that's we have a lot of people that suffer that way in their jobs, in their families, in their, like, dang, man, like, God, there's abundance out here.
Yeah.
And if you trust, your movements are already there. Your steps are there. Move in them.
Yeah, take the next step.
It's okay, just let go. Look,
be free.
Yeah,
be free.
Free indeed.
Free indeed. Free indeed.
Look, just let go. You're holding onto the rope. You're at the end of it. Let go.
Let go. And I had a very wise woman who was my prayer partner for a few years, and she got me through some really tough days. And one of the things she said, I told her, I called her one day, and I said, I am drowning. I'm drowning. And she said, go ahead and drown. She said, because only when you drown can God really save you.
Just stop fighting against it.
Yeah, stop fighting against it. Every once in a while I'll get, because I love a good protest.
Yes.
I love a good fight, and I love a good argument, and I love a good banter. I mean, just give it to me. Let's go. I'm very confrontational.
Yes.
You know, I tell clients all the time, I may not be the right counselor for you because I am confrontational.
I'm going to make you see it.
Exactly.
I'm not going to hurt you. My
Right.
intention isn't to hurt you. My intention is to help you see.
Right.
And that's why you came to me, because you believe I see in a place that you don't.
Absolutely.
You got to trust that.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very confrontational. I'm up for the fight, and sometimes I find myself fighting against things. Like there was something at school recently, and I was like, I don't even want to do that. Why am I fighting for it? You know, I told Mr. Bobo, Reverend Bobo, I told him, I said, why am I fighting for stuff I don't want to do?
Want to do
And
it.
he just starts laughing, and I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah, I don't.
This is stupid.
That's my favorite thing to say when I'm like, oh, I don't. The less I know, the better off I am. I don't. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Not mine.
I like
Not
it.
mine.
Yeah, when you say, oh, I didn't know.
I didn't
That's
know.
one of my
Yeah,
favorite
I don't
things
know.
to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Because I've realized that I've spent so much time dibbling and dabbling in all the spaces, and it's none of my business.
It's none of my business. It's not my problem.
Stay
it's
in my
not,
lane.
Exactly. You know, and
Stay
even
in my
sometimes
lane.
I don't even want to be in my lane.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reality of that, just saying, letting go of the things that do not bring you peace.
Yes.
Letting go of the conflict that doesn't really involve you.
Yep.
That doesn't matter. You know, Greg and I have said since the beginning of the pandemic, you know, and we've said, and well, no, we're 10 months out now. It feels like a whole year.
Almost
and
a year.
We were saying, you know, back in May, if you're doing what you were doing 2 months ago, and we keep saying it, if you're doing what you were doing back in March, if you're doing, then something may have been wrong with what you were doing.
Yeah.
And Greg and I have made some huge changes in our
Yeah.
lives. Huge. I mean, we have what we call pull the tooth, right?
Yeah.
There's been some decay and some things that we needed to do, and we have pulled the tooth in the last 9 months.
Yeah.
And we are walking in a freedom that we have never walked in.
And you probably see each other differently, completely different.
Absolutely.
You probably say he's probably like, man, she is spunky as hell. I love her. Like that's mine right there. You know.
Absolutely.
You know. I mean, it
Absolutely.
makes a difference when you can just say, I don't like that, and you know what? We're gonna talk about it. He's
Yeah.
probably like, I've been doing this for 10 years. You don't like it today? I got time today. Like we got time to talk about it. You know.
Absolutely.
And I think
But exercising that grace in the
I've seen it,
conversation,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Coming back to seeing him as my
as your husband. That's right.
as me being submissive to him, and
Yeah.
that's huge for him because I fought against that for years.
Man, I'm struggling with the idea of that. Like
I wonder how you were doing. For those of you, I think we mentioned this last time. Joy has been single for a while,
Oh,
and now
my
she's
God.
about to enter into a marriage.
Man.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be texting me a lot. What are you doing?
Yeah, man, our conversations are intense, but it's still like, okay, I hate being mad at you. My tone was mad disrespectful.
Right.
I love you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this later. You know, like then we just. I mean, I was like, do I care that I'm mad disrespectful? Do I like? Does it matter? And then you see this amazing man. It's like,
Oh, he is amazing.
you see him and you know that he loves you more than the last breath he just took, and you gotta be like, okay, I was mad disrespectful. my bad.
And I will say that I have one of those men too. He's wonderful and amazing, and I have a friend that tells me all the time, you know, God wants you married to that man, and it's very true. We have joined, and it is amazing. Two absolutely wonderful sons, you know, and just the pieces coming together on that, but exercising those grace in all communication.
In all of it, and just seeing yourself come alive. Like in the pandemic, it's been almost a year, and just look at how much you've grown, and I look how much I've grown. Like we're like, man, I feel like I should have been doing this 10 years ago.
I know, I'm like, I know what a blog is. Like,
Yeah.
who would think Jennifer Shiver would
Oh
ever know
my
what a
gosh,
blog
yes,
is, right?
yes,
So,
yes.
yeah, so those kind of things. So going back and bringing it back, and I don't know what time we have here. I'm thinking we're probably
36, so a few minutes over. We'll
okay.
finish up.
So I'm just thinking, bringing all this back and just, you know, wherever your battle is, take the stand. Stop sitting on the back of the bus.
Yep.
You know, Rosa said, what, you should never be afraid if you know you're doing the right
If you're
thing.
doing the right thing.
I misquoted her a little bit on that. But you should never be afraid if you know you're doing the right thing. You need to know you're doing the right thing, right? Because that's the freedom we've talked about. But if you know it, don't take a seat on the back of the bus anymore. You don't have to.
And it's okay. You're walking in your light, and it's amazing how different things are when you here's another misquote from Rosa Parks. No. No. When you say no and you establish that boundary for what you're going to take, and it changes your life. It changes the people around you, and you realize, like, I've been sitting here cowering, trying to protect everybody around me, and now I've said no. They're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next. I'm not scrambling. They're scrambling. They're trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
And that's the power in knowing that the reflection of yourself is that reflection of the grace that Jesus gives us. And then we can, in turn, put it out there for others.
Absolutely. So let me close with this. Exercising grace, but you got to live in 1 Peter 4:8. Above all else, love well, because love covers a multitude of sins. We will see you next month, where we're going to talk about Valentine's Day alone. So that should be a good one.
Listen, been there, done that, can write a book about it.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all. Have a good Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.